Hello and welcome to the final session for flower essence therapy. It's kind of gone a little quickly, hasn't it? In this session we're just going to round up with an overview of kind of pickings from the different essence sets with other Australian natives. And we're going to start with the floral emblems of Australia. And this includes the Australian floral emblem, but also the official flowers for the states and territories of Australia. So this is just an overview for you if you weren't aware that each state and territory has a unique flower associated with it. And the ones that I've highlighted there in bold, those four are ones that have been made into flower essences. So we've talked about Waratah already, and we've talked about the red and green kangaroo paw. So today we're just going to highlight, we're going to start by highlighting Sturt Desert Rose and Sturt Desert Pea. And these are both Australian bushflower essence from the Australian bushflower essence range. The first one is Sturt Desert Rose. And I find this one to be a very interesting flower because it deals with the issues around guilt. Now, guilt is, when you look at the difference, for example, between shame and guilt, guilt is an emotion that is kind of integral to society. So guilt is an emotion that's felt when you have done something that has affected another person in a negative way. They're hurt, they're in pain in some way, and it's a direct result of what you have done. So guilt is there to kind of highlight that even if your intention was pure, what's happened is an injury has occurred. And the guilt is the feeling which helps you to rectify the situation. So guilt is that motivating emotion that helps you to have the difficult conversations where you're vulnerable and you are genuine in your apology and you move forward being aware of that action potentially having that outcome. And so guilt in that sense is a useful emotion. However, like all the emotions, when you start to have a story around the emotion itself, it becomes a really distorted thing. And there are lots of incidences where guilt can turn into a sense of shame. And shame has more to do with, rather than this action that I did hurt someone, it is my inherent being is wrong. So rather than the action itself being wrong, something that I've done being wrong, it's I am wrong. It's a very different state. And it's a state that doesn't allow for kind of rectifying the situation and moving through it. It doesn't really allow for a self-empowerment and a lesson to come from it. And so guilt can be manipulated and is manipulated in society at large. And one way that I like to suggest to highlight that is using the word, watch for the word should. And I think I've mentioned this before, the should diary idea. This is a flower that sometimes helping people to become aware of when they use should, when other people use should. It can be one way to help people understand when the emotion of guilt is perhaps being manipulated and how they are being a part of that dance. And Sturt Desert Rose is highlighting guilt and when it's manipulated. And this is the wisdom that comes out of understanding that manipulation of guilt, is to understand that it's not a sense of shame, that guilt doesn't have to turn into shame, it doesn't have to turn into I'm inherently wrong, so that the positive outcome of this is inner conviction. You know, I'm human, so I will err, but inherently I know that I'm doing the best that I can. And that takes a lot of courage to be able to recognize your many faults as being part of the human race, and to keep picking yourself up, keep dusting yourself off, keep learning and keep developing into the kind of person that you wish to be in the world, how you wish to help others, how you wish to influence others. And bringing in things like kindness to self can be really helpful here. And Sturt Desert P. I mentioned this a little while ago about the forgiveness, about the Aboriginal legend that's associated with Sturt Desert P in the Australian Bushflower Essence text. So in Ian White's book that he wrote in 1991, go to Sturt Desert P and read between pages 144 and 147, and it gives you a strong idea of what this flower is used for. It's a highly cathartic flower that releases deep hurts and sadness. And the Aboriginal legend is around those deep hurts and sadness that are held within the land and the people. And so Sturt Desert P is often a flower that people think of in the Australian Bushflower Essence range for when there is that deep hurt and sadness that hasn't been released in any way, for whatever reason. It could have been the death of someone and then they moved into shock and never really went through the grief process, or it could be fear associated with grief. You know, there is this idea that it will be overwhelming, that they will drown in sorrow. But grief is an important and integral part of some people's healing journey, and it's truly coming to love grief for the wisdom that it offers is the lesson of Sturt Desert P. So this is about letting go, diffusing sad memories, and understanding that no hurt is too great that you can't truly sit in it, even though it's painful. And it's a lesson in finding inner peace, is to be able to sit in the pain as much as the pleasurable aspects of being human. Grevilleas. So there are a couple of grevilleas. So we've moved past the emblems now. We're just going to go into a few of the grevilleas, and this will be it for this section. So we have red grevillea from ABFE, and then fuchsia and golden glory. And as we go through, I want you to see, because these are the same plant families like we've always been doing, what are the doctrine of signatures? So when you look at these flowers, what's the first thing that stands out? And then, are there any similarities between the different essence sets, or are they drastically different? Why, if they are drastically different, why is that? You know, are there similarities, or is it just not at all the same? And think of the lesson rather than the way that people manifest what's happening. So red grevillea, look at that doctrine of signatures. So we have a beautiful red, quite a showy flower, but we have these tendrils almost, they're stamens that are moving out of the flower and kind of looks like it's grabbing onto something, in the same way that honeysuckle in the beech wildflowers, was known to kind of go out and grab onto things. Looks kind of similar, Dr. in the Signatures wise. Looks sticky, like you're going to get stuck in the spider's web. So this is for moving through a situation where you feel stuck. So it may be that they've found themselves in a situation that is not appropriate for them, that isn't serving them in any way, and they feel obligated to stay there. So this is the strength needed to move on from that situation. And it is a strength, you know, it is a trust that if I let this go, then the next opportunity life gives me will be better. Sometimes it's easier to stay in the familiar, even if it's painful, even if it is not serving our soul, our purpose, our greater good. And now we have fuchsia grevillea, which is the living essence range. So this is a different type of grevillea, but you can see it's still red, it's still got the exact same shape, Dr. in the Signature wise. And so this is about when thought, word and deed aren't in alignment. So perhaps you're thinking unpleasant things about somebody, but you're talking to them with syrupy sweetness in your voice. There is no congruency in the truth, and you're not able to talk your truth, not able to speak it. And so this is what we often refer to as being two-faced, meaning that you know, in one instance you are saying hurtful things about someone, and then you would turn around and be overly sweet and overly loving toward them, but there's no congruency. So this is truthfulness in your expression, and both of those have that element of being true to yourself. So that is quite similar, but there's actually quite a bit of difference in these two. So just have a little think about that. If you are unified in your thoughts and feelings, then perhaps it's difficult to stay in situations that isn't serving your truth. And golden grevillea. So this is obviously a very different color, still the same shape, and this is for the sociable spirit. So when people are wary, or their shyness is to do with not feeling confident, and as a consequence they separate themselves from the world, from others, as a way to protect themselves. It may be that in the past they have been taken advantage of, they've been hurt in some way, and so this is the brain's way of trying to keep them safe. This is a learnt pattern of behavior. The wisdom concept is that openness, and the awareness that with openness and vulnerability you do open yourself up to potential hurts, but that's not a good enough reason to shut off, to stop learning, to stop developing, to stop meeting the most amazing people. And it is such a beautiful idea of the courage that it takes to sit with an open heart in an expressive, loving way. And the detachment is from the idea that if I open myself up, then it must be only to loving people. It's about opening up to all experiences, regardless.